Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're diving deep into a story that could reshape the political landscape ahead of the 2027 general election. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the EACC, is pushing for a new, powerful law. Its goal? To bar politicians convicted of corruption and other integrity breaches from running for office. This isn't just a proposal, it's a direct challenge to the status quo. If passed by the National Assembly, it would fundamentally alter who can seek power in Kenya. Tonight, we explore this bold move, the legal hurdles it must overcome, the political firestorm it's igniting, and what it truly means for the fight against graft. We'll also look at the numbers, the key players, and the potential consequences. This is a 12-minute deep dive. Our first chapter, the proposal itself. What exactly is the EACC asking for? The Commission has submitted formal amendments to both statutory law and the Constitution. The core demand is clear. Any individual with a final conviction for corruption, economic crime, or a related integrity offense should be permanently disqualified from contesting for any elective office. This includes positions from member of county assembly all the way up to president. Currently, the law has significant loopholes. Politician can be charged, even convicted in a lower court, and still run while appeals drag on for years, sometimes decades. The EACC wants to close that gap. They argue that the mere fact of a conviction, regardless of a pending appeal, should trigger immediate disqualification. This is a seismic shift. According to EACC data from their latest integrity report, there are currently 42 sitting members of parliament and 15 governors facing active corruption cases in court. That's a total of 57 elected leaders whose political futures would be directly threatened by this law if it were applied today. Let's visualize that immediate impact. According to EACC data from their latest integrity report, there are currently 42 sitting members of parliament and 15 governors facing active corruption cases in court. But the EACC's ambition doesn't stop there. The proposed amendments also seek to expand the definition of integrity breaches. It would include violations of the Leadership and Integrity Act, such as failing to declare wealth, submitting false information to state agencies, or abusing office for personal gain. The Commission is also pushing for mandatory lifestyle audits for all aspirants, to be conducted and cleared by the EACC itself before one's name is submitted to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. The IEBC, the chairman of the EACC, in a statement last week, was unequivocal. He said, and I quote, "The time for polite warnings is over. Kenya cannot afford to have its leadership drawn from the ranks of the accused. The public's trust is eroded with every case that lingers in court while the suspect campaigns from the bench. This law is not about punishment, it is about prevention and restoring faith in our institutions." That's a powerful statement of intent. Let's hear that quote directly from the EACC chairman. He said, and I quote, "The time for polite warnings is over. Kenya cannot afford to have its leadership drawn from the ranks of the accused." Chapter 2, the legal and constitutional battlefield. Passing this law is not a simple matter of a parliamentary vote. Experts we spoke to highlight three major hurdles. First, the constitutional right to a fair hearing and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. A lawyer representing several politicians, who spoke on condition of anonymity, argued, disqualifying someone based on a conviction that is under appeal violates Article 50 of the Constitution. It presumes the appeal will fail. It turns the judicial process on its head. Second, there's the matter of amendments to the Constitution itself, which require a supermajority in Parliament, 2/3 of all members, and possibly a national referendum. Given that many MPs might feel personally targeted, securing that supermajority will be an immense political challenge. Third, there's the Elections Act and the IEBC's mandate. The IEBC's primary role is to manage elections, not to adjudicate on moral or legal fitness beyond the basic constitutional requirements. This law would force the IEBC into a quasi-judicial role, requiring it to rely on EACC certifications and court documents, potentially opening a new frontier for litigation. To understand the scale of the parliamentary challenge, let's look at the numbers needed. Given that many MPs might feel personally targeted, securing that supermajority will be an immense political challenge. We analyzed the voting patterns on previous anti-corruption bills. In the last parliamentary session, a milder bill aimed at strengthening asset recovery failed to pass. It received 122 votes in favor, 98 against, with 40 members absent. That's a support rate of just 46%, far short of the 67%, or 2/3, needed for constitutional changes. Political analysts suggest that for this new, more aggressive EACC law to pass, it would require unprecedented bipartisan support and significant public pressure. The timeline is also tight. For it to be in effect for the 2027 election, the bill would need to be introduced, subjected to public participation, passed by both houses, assented to by the president, and any consequent constitutional changes ratified, all within the next 18 to 24 months. That is a daunting legislative marathon. Chapter 3: The Political Earthquake. The reaction from political circles has been swift and polarized. Supporters of the law, mainly from civil society and some opposition quarters, hail it as a long overdue game changer. A prominent governance NGO released a statement calling it the single most important piece of anti-corruption legislation since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution. They point to the staggering economic cost of corruption. According to a 2025 report by the Auditor General, questionable spending and outright theft in just 3 ministries, health, transport, and agriculture, amounted to over 250 billion shillings in the last financial year. That's enough money to build 25,000 new classrooms or fully fund the country's primary health care budget for 18 months. Let's put that massive figure into perspective. According to a 2025 report by the Auditor General, questionable spending and outright theft in just 3 ministries, health, transport, and agriculture, amounted to over 250 billion shillings in the last financial year. On the other side, critics, particularly from factions within the ruling coalition and some established political families, call the proposal draconian and politically motivated. They argue it could be weaponized by the EACC, which reports to the president, to disqualify political opponents on trumped-up charges. One senator from a vote-rich region told us off the record, "This is not about integrity, it's about incumbency protection. It's a tool to clear the field for preferred candidates by threatening rivals with endless investigations." There's also a pragmatic argument. With so many seasoned politicians potentially sidelined, would the 2027 ballot be filled with political novices, and would that lead to weaker governance? A political risk firm we consulted estimated that if the law were applied using current caseloads, up to 30% of likely frontrunners for gubernatorial seats and 25% for parliamentary seats could be disqualified, creating massive volatility. That's a significant potential disruption to the political class. A political risk firm we consulted estimated that if the law were applied using current caseloads, up to 30% of likely frontrunners for gubernatorial seats and 25% for parliamentary seats could be disqualified. Chapter 4: The Public Sentiment and Comparative View. What do ordinary Kenyans think? While comprehensive polling is ongoing, a recent survey by a leading research firm offers insights. When asked, should politicians convicted of corruption be barred from running for office, even if they are appealing? 72% of respondents said yes. Only 18% said no, with 10% undecided. This suggests strong public backing for the EACC's tough stance. However, the same poll revealed deep skepticism about implementation. Only 35% of Kenyans believed the law would be applied fairly without political interference. This trust deficit is the EACC's and Parliament's biggest hurdle. Public opinion is clearly in favor, but trust in execution is low. When asked, should politicians convicted of corruption be barred from running for office, even if they are appealing? 72% of respondents said yes. Kenya is not the first country to grapple with this. We can look to India, where the Supreme Court ruled that lawmakers convicted of crimes with sentences of 2 years or more are immediately disqualified. In Brazil, the clean slate law, or Ficha Limpa, bars candidates convicted by a collective judicial body. The results have been mixed. In India, the rule has been applied, but critics say it hasn't dented the broader culture of criminality in politics. In Brazil, the law initially disqualified hundreds of politicians, but legal challenges have since watered down its impact. The key lesson for Kenya is that a strong law must be paired with an independent, swift, and trusted judiciary to handle the inevitable appeals and charges. Without judicial reform, this could just move the bottleneck from the ballot box to the courts. Chapter 5: The Road to 2027 and Conclusion. So, where does this leave us? The EACC has thrown a grenade into the center of Kenyan politics. The next steps are clear. The proposals are now before the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs in the National Assembly. They will call for public memoranda, hold hearings, and eventually produce a report recommending whether to proceed with the bill, amend it, or reject it. This committee stage is where the first real battle will be fought through lobbying, media campaigns, and legal opinions. The role of President William Ruto's administration will be crucial. While the president has publicly committed to a fight against corruption, his administration's support for this specific, aggressive law remains unstated. His word could sway dozens of MPs. As we look ahead, several scenarios are possible. Scenario 1, the law passes in a strong form, creating a major purge of candidates in 2027 and potentially ushering in a new generation of leaders. Scenario 2, it passes in a watered-down form, perhaps only applying to those who have exhausted all appeals, which would have minimal immediate impact. Scenario 3, it fails in Parliament, becoming a rallying cry for reformists in the 2027 campaign. Scenario 4, it passes but is immediately challenged in the Supreme Court, leading to a landmark constitutional ruling that will define Kenyan politics for a generation. In summary, the EACC's push is more than just a bill. It's a litmus test for Kenya's democratic institutions. It tests Parliament's willingness to regulate itself, the judiciary's capacity for expediency, the executive's commitment to reform, and the public's power to demand accountability. The numbers don't lie: 57 sitting leaders under trial, 250 billion shillings in questionable spending, and 72% public support for a ban. The momentum for change is building. Whether it translates into a new law by 2027 will be one of the defining stories of this political season. The battle lines are drawn. The debate has begun. For Kenya News Update Today, I'm your host. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Kenya News Update Today.